My name is Jeff Sigworth. I was raised in North Ridgeville. I grew up in North Ridgeville the first 25 years, but now I've lived more than half my life in Lorain. My parents are Tom and Margie Sigworth. They're both living out on the west side of Oberlin now. My dad was a policeman, chief of police in North Ridgeville for 17 years, and my mom was a stay-at-home mother, raised five children. I'm the oldest, and then comes Bob, Kay, Paul, and Scott. I started working at Lorain Library in 1976, so that was my connection with Lorain. I've always had an interest in history since I was about 8 or 9 years old. I've had an interest in local history, American history, whatever. And then I started working in Lorain in 76. So right away I started getting interested in the history of the city of Lorain. The first few months I worked there, I was at the circulation desk checking out books and shelving books. And then most of my 38 years there, now I've been in the technical services department processing the new materials that come in on the computer. When I first started, I was operating the only computer in the whole library system, which includes 6 buildings. But now, of course, there are hundreds of computers all over the library. And starting in '73, I was a member of the Lorain County Historical Society. And then in 1977, we bought the lighthouse. We saved the lighthouse. The lighthouse was about to be torn down, and the local group in Lorain didn't think they could do it on their own, so they joined up with the Lorain County Historical Society, and together we saved the lighthouse. And they sold the Corps of Engineers, I think, sold the lighthouse to the Historical Society for $1. And we owned it for 14 years from 1977 to 1991. And then the Port Authority was created and they took it over. We didn't do a whole lot except to maintain it. Of course, I was one of the youngest members, and I was just kind of following around as they did things. But I was with the group of 12 people from the Historical Society when we first acquired it to take a Coast Guard cutter out to inspect the lighthouse. Of course, it was in really bad shape back then. Pigeons had been the main occupants. So we took a look at it, and that was kind of neat. All we did basically, I think we helped to shore up the foundation a little bit and gave it a coat or two of paint during the 14 years that we owned it, but we didn't do a whole lot. Not as much as the Port Authority's done, of course, to restore it. There's a lot of history. There's over 200 years of history in Lorain since Nathan Perry and Azariah Beebe first settled at the mouth of the river in 1807. When I first came here, I didn't know too much about Lorain. I just knew it was a big industrial city to the north. Even when we were kids in North Ridgeville, and when I started living in the area, we never visited the lake that much, maybe only 3 or 4 times before I was 21 that I remember, even though it was so nearby. So when I started working in Lorain, it was kind of mysterious, the big industrial city. And of course at that time, with everything going, all the industry was really booming then. Everything was putting off a lot of smoke and fumes and everything. So I was one of the co-founders of this Lorain Historical Society. It was for most of the time, it was the Black River Historical Society since it was started. Although the first 2 months it was started, we called it the Charleston Historical Society. And then with 2 months later, we actually did the organization of it, and that's when it became the Black River Historical Society. And now it's the Lorain Historical Society.